Adams, the creator of the Dilbert comic strip, says he reached out to President Trump for help as his health is quickly going downhill.
The 60-year-old Adams has been a prominent supporter of Trump since the 2016 election, and he revealed earlier this year that he has prostate cancer and does not expect to live much longer. In a post on X, he wrote in part, "My healthcare provider, Kaiser of Northern California, has approved my application to receive a newly FDA-approved drug called Pluvicto, but they have dropped the ball in scheduling the brief IV to administer it, and I can't seem to fix that. I'm declining fast. I will ask President Trump if he can get Kaiser of North California to respond and schedule it for Monday. That will give me a fighting chance to stick around on this planet a little bit longer." Trump, as well as HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., both responded to Adams saying they wanted to help. On Monday, Adams shared an update saying, "Getting Pluvicto, the cancer drug, tomorrow via Kaiser Northern California. The Trump administration works fast. Amazing." For its part, Kaiser Permanente appeared to at least partially deny the claims that Adams had made about the company dropping the ball. It said in a statement Monday, Mr. Adams' oncology team is working closely with him on the next steps in his cancer care, which are already underway.
Now, supporters of Adams on the right celebrated his update and praised Trump for reaching out to him. But others expressed frustration with the situation and with the U.S. healthcare system as a whole. Liberal commentator Brian Krasenstein writes, quote, "Nothing against Scott Adams. I genuinely wish him the best as he battles cancer. But as someone who supported a political movement fighting to strip people of health coverage and opposing medical care for all, maybe he's beginning to realize that not everyone can just call the president when their insurer denies care." And scientist Robert Rohde says, quote, "It is hard to imagine a clearer example of how effed up and broken the U.S. medical system is than watching a wealthy and connected person get help that normal people could never hope for."
Well, I mean, people with more financial resources can use those resources to get better medical care, higher quality food, to live more comfortably. That's not so much the problem. The problem is, though, I take Krasenstein's point, it cannot be, the system can't be
who you know.
If you can personally get the health secretary on, get access to him on Twitter, you can get access to better care. I said this, it kind of reminds me of, for a while, when Elon first took over Twitter, and we were, kind of discussing what the moderation policy should be, what had gone wrong under the previous ownership of Twitter. He would respond to somebody like, "Oh, Elon, what about this? This is wrong." And he would respond, he'd say, "Looking into this, fixing this, working on it." Okay, personally appealing to the owner of the platform is not a sustainable content moderation strategy, particularly as Elon aspires to be such a active participant on the platform, and then he also wants to set the rules for the platform. None of that made sense. Similarly, this doesn't make sense. Scott Adams is an interesting person. He's been increasingly right-leaning over the last 10 years, has said very controversial things in the past. He hosts a kind of talk show of his own that I frankly have watched quite a bit of because I enjoy listening to him, even though I often really don't agree with him. I find him interesting to listen to, and I've loved the Dilbert cartoon strip. I think it's really funny. I miss it. I love it.
Wow, you laughed at something.
It did make me laugh. Kind of Office Space type joking about, Mondays, am I right? HR meetings. Love all that kind of stuff. It does warm my heart. So I'm sorry. I'm sad for him, and I hope he gets treatment, and I hope he makes a full recovery. Although it sounds like he's in very bad shape.
Look, I'm terribly sad for him. I personally, as soon as I saw this story, I just take politics out of it. I had a friend that passed away from cervical cancer a year ago, and so I remember, and the little pull that I have is like, I'm doing everything to get her on this clinical trial that they only had in Houston, emailing whoever needs to be emailed. I don't care. I want to make sure that she can live because it gave her 6 more months to live. And so I know how desperate people can be when you know that you're facing mortality and then there's some kind of shining glimmer of hope, and you've tried all the chemo treatments, you tried. So they know what position he's in, appealing and using anything within his grasp or in his world to try to get to a goal of just living a little bit longer. I know that feeling
And I'm
too closely.
big supporter, by the way, of right to try. I think people who are very ill and other treatments have failed, we should allow them at their discretion to
do what they want.
To take drugs that have not yet been approved. we could.
He said this one was
If it
FDA
doesn't work-
approved, though.
This one actually was approved, but I would allow it even if it wasn't FDA approved, because it should be their right to do that, and they don't have much hope anyway. And frankly, although this sounds very heartless, we can learn something of scientific benefit, even if it doesn't end up helping that person.
And to some people, to have that few months rather than be bedridden or whatever have you, their circumstance for the without taking it or without trying it, they prefer to live. People have a choice in that way, I think. And so I'm not upset with him doing the same thing, because if it was my family member, I don't care where they lean politically and they needed my help or myself, then I would probably use the resources that I have. But I think with President Trump's thing, he should look at it, and that's kind of what people are asking Republicans to do about healthcare, is to look at it from an empathetic lens, that people really don't want things like New York Times was saying that President Trump was stripping research institutions of public funding. These same type of research institutions will find things like this Pluvicto or whatever he's going to take that help somebody like him, the Dilbert creator, to get on a trial that saves their life or extends their life for their family for 6 months. If we don't have research funding, we can't do that. And so these things get on the back burner when you're talking about excessive government spending. We have to be mindful about which programs we're cutting, where we're diverting our attention to. And sometimes it should be on how to fix medical coverage and care. There's layers to this, right? Kaiser Permanente putting his treatment out of 150 people they had to go through on the back burner. Should he get preferential treatment because he's famous? These are all arguments that, are going to be problematic, or we should figure out how to make sure that everyone's treated equally and has a fair shot at living.
And of course, they contend that
that's alleged, right? That's what they.
We don't know that. Going through the, it could have been an error on his part. It's a confusing if you're trying to talk to doctors and schedule things and what do we do here and who it takes forever. The whole system is just such a disaster. So who knows if some screw up happened or not. Even
but he has his
trying to
now.
get into an experimental, or I know it's approved, so I don't know how experimental this trial
well,
is.
Well, there's a lot of steps to get into a program like that, right? You have to.
And they make determinations based on your health and your
right. They can just say this doesn't work for you. It doesn't matter how much you want it. We can't risk it as doctors to do this.
Or that you're not the most promising. We have a finite amount of this, and you're not the most promising candidate, so we're going to give it to someone else. That comes up in transplants and other things. Those are judgments that should be left to the doctors themselves. If there's a finite amount of resources, and if they have a finite amount of time too, they have to decide how they're going to, who's going to get their care. Right,
if it's a fully healthy child or somebody.
There's only so many people. Right. So all of that is proper to do, but he's still around. I hope for much longer, and it's a shame he doesn't make Catbert, right? That was the character I love. It was the evil manager of HR in the strip. Is this demonic? I think, and there's Dogbert, and there's I loved it. I love this.
I just know my grandma had it, so I used to just go through it, and then it became a cartoon, and everybody was happy.
Yeah. All right. Next up on Rising, Oscar-winning actor and longtime Democrat George Clooney is making headlines after saying that Kamala Harris running for president was a mistake in his view. We'll be right back to hear his explanation.